Hello, and welcome to Semi-Adult, a podcast about attempting to navigate adulthood, with your hosts, V
and Annie. And we like to start our podcast off with a little just daily, weekly check-in, see how we're doing, how we're feeling, how this week is treating us. So, Vivi, why don't you get started?
Yeah, so this week was nice in the sense that we had a long weekend, so I was thriving with that. But also, Mother Nature was like, fuck you. And it was raining all weekend. So that kind of felt like a slap in the face. Like, okay, I finally have time to go out and be in nature and you don't want me out there. Kind of rude. But in a way, I think she was also, and yes, I'm referring to Mother Nature as she, was trying to keep people from having large gatherings. She's like, I don't approve. So that was kind of like her way of doing that. Yeah. So I'm like, I can't be like too mad, but a little disappointed. I ended up going into Boston, for what was supposed to be like a couple-hour trip and ended up being like 24 hours. And it had its twists and turns. My friend's car got towed. Just a lot happened, but we made it. It ended up being an unexpected adventure. And, I think that I want to do more of those. I want to have more unexpected adventures. I think as a person who's anxious, like I like to plan a lot of my life. But I forgot that there's like a part of me that's like separate from anxiety who like loves adventure and like doing fun things out of the blue. So I just really leaned into everything. And it's funny because in retrospect, like those are things that would have caused me anxiety like normally, just thinking about like, you leave a club or a bar in this case and like you go to your parked car and it's just gone. Like that would have freaked me out.
I would not be well. Like you're taking this very well. Like I'm very proud of you. You go girl, but not me, not I. Like I would be crying on the phone with somebody trying to get this resolved, but using anything but my common sense in that moment as well. Like I would not be well.
Girl,
that's the moral of that.
That's the thing. Like in retrospect, I'm like, how is she so calm? I was just like, here's the number. Let's call them. They were like, yeah, we're open. We tried to get an Uber, tried to get a Lyft. Both were like, there are none available. So I was like, we really are stranded here. It's the middle of the night.
How does that even happen?
I don't know. I guess
I Boston
really don't know.
Too.
Yeah, that's why I was very confused. That's never happened to me. I don't know if it may be because of COVID or something. Like there just were no Ubers or Lyfts. And then suddenly like this couple a block back waves down a taxi, but he goes to stop a bit ahead, which is right in front of us. And we just snatched that taxi. We were like, I'm so sorry, but like
Did you have to drive past them?
No, thankfully, because he went past them and stopped in front of us. So then I think they possibly thought that we had called him. We didn't.
Whatever it was, it worked.
I know. We were literally like our angel swooping in and saving us because I called an Uber and a Lyft like 20 times and it just did not work. It was a wild night with a lot of tragedies, but then ultimately success. We went to the sketchiest. I've never had my car towed, so I didn't know what that was like. Went to the sketchiest place to get our car towed. I literally told the guy, I was like, I need you to stay here, like to the taxi driver. I was like, until we confirm, because if you leave me here, we're literally in this random like parking lot area with like a bunch of semi trucks. I was like, this is where I die.
And there's no guarantee you'll get another taxi or Uber.
Exactly, especially there. I was like, this is the middle of nowhere. Like at least the other place was like on a main street. That was literally Ani. It felt like that is the scene of where you get murdered. And then you go up, the tow truck place is like in a trailer with like blackout windows. You can't even see the person you're talking to. There's just like a little slit to like, I hand them my license. I was like, am I ever going to get that back? Like,
I don't think so. They cannot find out where I live. I think I watch far too much true crime. I think that's part of the problem why I wouldn't be like mentally well in that situation, because I just know too much. If I hand you my license, I'm like, so now you know where I live.
And they held it for a while. It made me feel like I was like, are you stealing my identity? Like I was just very confused, but also I could very clearly smell weed through there. So I was like, maybe they're just really high. And I guess if you have to work,
which is also a possibility.
It was like 1 or 2 a.m. So I imagine that at that time, you know, if you're working a job that's 24 hours like that, like you gotta be a little high to survive. So I was like, I'm not judging you. I just really just hope you're not stealing my identity. Like that's all I'm asking for. Like I just really would like my license
give it back.
Please. And so
I
we
have
eventually
a lot of
made
student
it
debt.
out.
Like I'm the wrong one.
I'm the wrong one. I'm not the target for this. Like y'all do not want this identity. This identity is tainted, cursed. Like we're good. But it was definitely a wild ride. But it reminded me of being like young. I say that as I'm literally 24 years old. But it reminded me of being younger. The good old days in college when I would just do wild shit like that with my friends. But I've just become such an old person, like genuinely. I just sit. I was so happy to be back home.
Welcome to the club.
I was like, I need to shower. I need to sleep. I was like, waking up in someone else's bed. Granted, it's my friend, but still, like, I'm like, I haven't done those things in so long. Like, in a house that I don't know. Like, it was very disorienting. Now. I am. I was like, I love my home. I love my office. I love my 2 showers that I can choose from. Like, what do you mean? And it was a boys' home.
When you were in college.
Boys' bathrooms. Like, that took me back. I was like, I absolutely despise this. Like, what are the products that they have? It's
none.
Like
one bar of
none.
soap. That's
bar
the
soap.
one product for everything. Shampoo,
my friend
face wash,
showered
body wash.
there. I was like, she's like, you want to shower? No,
absolutely not.
I will shower in my home with my bougie products that smell like girl.
And also, if you do like submit to their questionable bar of soap, what you gonna dry yourself with?
Literally, I was like, you know, they don't got a towel, an extra towel. That's one is like.
I don't trust their towel. It probably smells like mildew.
That's
no judgment,
true.
but I'm judgment.
No judgment, but I'm judging. But, you know, we survived, and now it's like somehow June, which is alarming. How did we get here?
We're halfway through the year.
I am not okay with that. Like, 2021 just started. I have goals I have not achieved yet, and I haven't even started on them. So I'm like, I'm kind of running out of time. So that's a little rude. But, you know, enough about me. How are you? How has this last week been treating you? How are you feeling? Let us know.
Well, I love June 1st. It is one of my favorite days in the year because I think that it's just a really good time to check in with yourself and just see where you're at with your goals, where you're at just in your life, and make sure, like, am I well? Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing to reach the end goal? I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I like to have these kind of conversations with myself, and just having that set time every year, like June 1st, I set that time aside, just makes me feel good because, as V stated earlier, I'm a planner. I like to plan everything, every aspect. I like to make sure that we're on track. I like to make sure that goals are being met and check. Like, I live for that list. And yeah, I feel like that says a lot about me.
It does. You're like, I need to. It's like, how do you say you're type A without saying you're type A? That's basically what
I just gave
did.
It to you. There you go. Should have made a TikTok. But other than that, I'm good. I just transitioned out of one job. I'm in process of transitioning to the next, and we're getting a lot of personal things done in this time, but also taking a moment to just breathe and like recover and relax. And my way of doing that is by making a lot of food. I have a lot of comfort in food. It's an experience for me. I really enjoy making it. So today, I decided to make my first loaf of bread ever in my entire life. Spoiler, great success, 11 out of 10, would recommend. I also made a vegan cheese and these oatmeal cookie. It's a cookie cake. Now that one had an accident along the way, but it works and it's great. And I made oat milk. So therapy, making food, it's all the same in this house.
I feel like that's definitely a Hispanic thing. Like, we show love through food, and it's just like such a big part of our culture and our lives that it makes sense for you that would be like a comfort. I'm very much did not pick up that trait. Like, I love to eat, don't get me wrong, but I'm so lazy, and like hearing you talking about making your own bread, and I like really contemplate if I'm going to toast some bread to make myself a sandwich.
Let me tell you, I feel like I've been scammed by like grocery stores and grocery store bakeries because it's really not that hard. I did it. It was minimal ingredients, and I already ate half the loaf between me and my boyfriend. Like, yeah, I'm admitting that, but it's real life, and it was delicious, and I have no self-control. I don't know her.
We don't need to know her. It's like we're living our best life, and
She wasn't part of my June check-in.
June check-in, just bread didn't happen. It's fine. Also, like, live your best life. You're on a little cute break. Like, let's eat.
Oh,
I love that for you. And
that's where I'm at.
I'm glad that you are. You know, you had a good week. You know, you finished off strong and you survived, which is the hardest of all. And you made it to the other side. So I'm really happy for you personally because you're my bestie. So obviously anything that makes you happy, I'm so happy for. And that you have time to do things like in your personal life, which is always what we push aside.
It was much needed. I was overdue with myself.
And that's just a little bit of self-care. And speaking of self-care, that has to do with our topic today, which is finding the balance between being woke and being okay. And kind of what we mean by that, some background, is that, you know, especially in this past year or two, honestly, there's been an influx in information shared. You know, the news has always been there, but I feel like our generation and in entering adulthood, we're starting to become woke or aware of what's happening in the world.
Whether you want to or not.
Yeah, it's beyond our own little bubble. It's seeped into our social media. Like, that's when I knew I became a semi-adult, is because suddenly my social media transformed and it started to have a lot more things about social justice. And just in general, I think that social justice on social media has grown, like using social media as a tool for spreading information. And I'm really happy because it means that younger generations are learning sooner about important issues and navigating their lives with that information, you know, like people aren't as quick to, I remember when we were younger, like people would, and you know, it's speaking of, it's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, I remember people would be like, that's so gay. Like, that was such a normal thing in middle school. And now
oh my God, the
kids,
early
like, no, that's wrong.
Like, shame. Big shame.
Delete the early 2000s in general. Like, I know Y2K style is coming back. Like, we love that. Some of it can literally, like, burn in a fire.
Like low-rise jeans?
Low-rise jeans, I refuse. I refuse. Like, throw that away. Keep that in the 2000s. Like, that is oppression. Also, like, skirts over jeans, absolutely not. I'm gonna vomit. But it's great that social media is, like, literally a great tool that we're using, and it's one of the most powerful tools for spreading information right now. And I'm glad that it's being used in such a constructive way. But
sometimes.
Sometimes. The downside to that is that we are always, like, it's like we're drowning in this information. And especially when really negative things happen, like, you know, constant tragedy, like police brutality, mass shootings, you know, acts of racism. When they happen, you can't escape them. And especially when they resonate with you as a person, it's like, you know, for when we see things about racism, I'm sure, you know, for example, when there was the shooting in the gay club in Orlando, like, that was definitely horrifying to people of the LGBTQ plus community. So
and it struck home because it was so close.
Yeah, as Floridians, it was just very alarming with that. And, you know, for us, for those of you who don't know, our mom works at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and she was there the day of that shooting. So that was terrifying. And even now, I feel very, like, whenever I hear anything about it, it really strikes a chord with me. And we just couldn't escape it. It was everywhere after that, the Parkland shooting. Like, it, and even now, I was just on YouTube literally today, and there came up a YouTube trending video that comes up on every one of my channels, like, and I can't escape it. It keeps being recommended to me, of what, because it has like 24 million views, and it's called like what pretending to like have psychosis or something.
That came up on my recommended as well, and it's his face. He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named.
We refuse to give any sort of clout or any, like, no. So Voldemort is
the Voldemort. Yeah, if you want to see that video, it's up. I didn't watch the video because I was like, I refuse to give him any more attention. But the Parkland shooter, which is all that he will be called, there was a video about that. So it's hard because you can't escape it. And like, I was on YouTube. I wasn't on YouTube to see the news. I was on YouTube to like check out some videos from my favorite vloggers, you know, just relax with my dinner, and that's what I came across. And it's just, it can be really hard to not be able to turn that off and not be able to enjoy the outlets that you use for entertainment, because they're also the outlets that you use to find news and what's happening. And Ani, you can talk about kind of like this weekend what went down.
Yeah, well, first, before that, like, so I feel like this affects people very differently, and Vivi and I are two really good examples of that, in the sense that while she chooses to be very like vocal and active on her social media about, like she said, using it as a platform to educate people and things like that, that's just not what I'm here for. And I have like no shame in admitting that. I personally, anyone who knows me or has me on socials might think that I like dropped off the face of the earth for the past 6 months. I literally haven't like posted on my personal page in like about 6 months, and I don't care to. After just like the change in the climate and everything last year, I just made a choice to take a step back. I turned off all my notifications for my social, so even if people do message me through there, I'm not looking at it, because I do want to escape those things. I learned what I need to learn. I have my news alerts on so I can get real facts about what's going on and not just like washed down information, some he said, she said. But I just don't, that's not relaxing to me. Like, I live in a bubble of anxiety where like a normal person's anxiety is here. Mine is constantly up here. So I really don't need help in that department. So I choose to take a completely different approach and just not post at all, just not check it at all. Just, it doesn't exist to me. I mean, I feel like if you are active on socials and you have our semi-adult podcast page and you follow it, well, first of all, thank you. But second of all, you will notice that I'm not active on there. And it's not because I don't want to be. It's more because I'm just not in that headspace. And I don't want to force myself to do that. So following up on that, all of that was just to say that there were 2 mass shootings this weekend, Memorial Day weekend in Miami. And when I was talking to Vivi on the phone over the weekend, because she lives up in New Hampshire, I was letting her know, I was like, oh, this happened. And she didn't even know, which in my opinion is so alarming, because it means that these things are so normalized that it's not like breaking national news anymore. Like, it's pretty much, if it happens in your area, you find out, and that's that. It's not anything groundbreaking that these people are going in on any holiday weekend, anything that's supposed to be a positive social gathering, a positive joining of the community, is suddenly some scary, like, I don't want to say target range, but that's what it feels like. It feels like you're a walking target if you go anywhere during a big weekend or a holiday or anywhere where people are supposed to get together and celebrate life and love and just community. And these things induce so much anxiety as it is. And while there should be news coverage so that people know that this is happening and they don't forget that this is a problem in our country, like a deep-rooted problem. But also, all that to say is I don't want to go on social media after having that anxiety on my day-to-day life and just having that fear, just consciously thinking about the weekend and making plans and things like that, and then jump on social media and see that these things are just everywhere. I don't know. I feel like that contradicts itself in a way, because yes, I want people to be aware. I want people to know that this is happening. But when it comes to the socials, that's just like not what I use it for. And for me, that's where I go to escape all of my news articles that are letting me know like that the world is burning around me. That's where I go just to see like mindless things. That's not the place, in my opinion, to have just all of that negativity and just spreading it and spreading it. Because I feel like in a way that also feeds into the problem. And that feeds into why these people do what they do. They want to be talked about. They want to be posted about. And that's just not what I'm into. They want people, even if you don't use their name, they want you to talk about what they did. And I just don't want to do that on my personal page. And it's not my job to educate people about social dilemmas. Like, that's a personal problem. That's not what my page is for. Do you want makeup advice? DM me. Otherwise, like, I don't care.
Yeah, that we are very different in that way, because I use my socials as like a way to educate my followers, which are mostly my friends and my family. But I could definitely see like needing a separate space for just what you love and what you enjoy, and like keeping that sacred, because that is a part of it. It's like true self-care of like taking care of your mental and knowing that you do need that separation sometimes, because otherwise you're in this like cycle of just like listening to and spreading negativity, and like, and they're real things and we do need to talk about them, but if you
100%.
never leave that, it feels like a hamster wheel of death, and like you can't stay in that long term. It's not sustainable for you, and it's going to make you burn out. So it's not even effective long term, because you're not even going to be able to be a part of this fight if you can't take care of yourself, because before you feed others, you have to feed yourself. And that is something that has been really hard for me to learn as a people pleaser. But it's important. And like, speaking about self-care, I think that's something that is often misunderstood. So I want to ask you, what is true self-care to you?
I think true self-care is saying yes to yourself when you want to say yes to yourself, and saying no to things that you don't want to do. I think it's just a matter of yes and no, and when to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Very succinct. I think, to me, true self-care is being able to put yourself first sometimes. And it's also making hard decisions. Like, I feel like self-care is sold to us as bubble baths, face masks, treat yourself, go on that shopping spree, which, I do all of those things.
Capitalism. I do too, but like capitalism.
That's what it is. That is the capitalist version of self-care. But I think that true self-care is not cute. True self-care is, cutting yourself off from social media for the day and saying, I need to get off of this because my mental space is not okay right now.
Or for 6 months, if that's what you need.
If that's what you need, go off for 6 months. Like, delete your social media apps. It's okay. And it's like, turn off the news. And yes, that is in itself a privilege to be able to tune it all out. But
100%,
if you are able to, it's important to do that every now and then. And you shouldn't feel guilty about having to do that, because it's important for you to be able to take care of yourself and for you to not yourself have a mental breakdown, because at the end of the day, that's the tunnel that's leading to, like, that's on the other side of that tunnel, is if you just keep going and going and going and never take a break. And that's a way in which social media can be toxic, because it's addicting. It's like constant immediate satisfaction, like constant content.
And it doesn't matter what you're consuming. It's just it being so constant. That's why it matters what you're looking at, in my opinion, because if you're leaving your anxiety-induced life and propelling yourself into a digital life of anxiety, it's only going to make it worse for yourself. And like V said earlier, you can't pour from an empty cup. And yes, that is a complete perspective of privilege to be taking, and I get that, I acknowledge that. But I also believe in just like caring about myself and taking care of myself first. And because, especially if you're going through something yourself in your personal life that is taking over, like, you can't let yourself get engulfed by the problems of the world. You can't feel like you have to be out there protesting and doing this and that, when like what you really have to do is drag your ass to the doctors.
That is
health is wealth.
1000% true. Like, you can't neglect yourself in order to solve bigger problems. And yes, we need everyone to do a little something to be able to make change, but know that the problem isn't entirely on your back, and you're not going to solve anything 100% by yourself. So lean on that,
and that
community
doesn't mean
aspect.
Give up.
Yeah. It means work together and divide and conquer.
And listen to yourself.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Checking in with yourself. That's something that is really important about self-care, is like taking the time to stop, rest, and reflect, because sometimes you don't even realize that something's wrong because you haven't taken the time to look inside. Like, we're constantly facing outwards, especially in consuming content, that sometimes you don't stop and look inside and see, like, how do I feel? Like, I didn't even realize that I was super stressed out or was anxious. Like, you won't realize you're clenching your jaw and your fists and like things like that. So it's important to check in on those things. And I think a great example of what true self-care is from Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, The 7 Kinds of Rest. And I will share this on our socials as well. So if you follow us, it'll be in the highlights of our stories on Instagram. And I just want to go over them really quickly so that you all know a bit more of like what we consider to be, or what I consider to be true self-care. And that is rest. And like, you need rest, you need breaks, but there's different kinds. So the first one is physical rest. And that's the traditional one that most people think about, you know, just napping, sleeping at night, making sure that you do that. And then the more active physical rest, because those are more passive, you know. The more active ones are doing things like yoga or stretching, things that are like moving but are relaxing. The next is mental rest, which is super important and not enough people do. And that's like taking some time to, you know, you can meditate, you can journal, things that stop like consuming stuff and just like check in with yourself mentally. Sensory rest. Oh, wow. We do not do this enough. That's like, what do you do when you spend all day working and you're on the computer or whatever it is that you work on, you're just like constantly consuming with your eyes. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I have time off. What do I do? Oh, let me watch some TV or let me scroll on social media. So you're on sensory overload because you're not actually taking time to rest that. And it's important to do that every now and then. Another one is creative rest. This is especially important if you work in creative stuff. Like, I work in creative work, I work in marketing, and I also do that on my side stuff, like this podcast. So sometimes I need a break from being creative and just like veg out for a while. Go outside, hang out with my dog, just do something that doesn't require me to be creative and come up with ideas. The next one is emotional rest. That is something that's so important with this balance of between being woke and being okay, is that it's such an emotional process, like fighting for social justice, because the stuff that you're coming across is so emotionally compelling and powerful, and that's what gets you involved. And I'm glad that it strikes a chord with people, because that's how we make real change. But if you're constantly in that battle, constantly consuming that content and sharing it, it's going to exhaust you. Being emotionally exhausted is something that's so true and real, and you can sleep all you want, but if you don't take a break from that, you are not going to feel fully rested. And then the last two are social rest and spiritual rest. So social rest is a lot, and introverts can definitely know about social rest, in just the sense that like sometimes, and extroverts need this too, when you just spend too much time being around people, and like, even if they're your loved ones, it's ultimately exhausting because it's being turned on constantly. And you need to be able to just turn off that switch, hang out with yourself, say nothing. Alone time is essential for everyone. And spiritual rest is more about, connecting with your inner self, whether you're religious or not. Just whatever way that gets you to like stop and, look within, or look to like meditate even. Or if you do practice some sort of religion, it can be going to church or praying, whatever it is that resonates with you. But those are just some of the ways that can rest. And I think it's important to know that there's different ways to rest, because we might be achieving some of them, but you really got to check in and know that you're hitting the ones that you need, not the ones that you think you need. We're gonna, take that nap, but that nap might not hit right because it's not achieving the actual rest that you need, which is stop looking at your damn phone all day long, And then I guess I'll leave us with this final question, and I'll ask it to you, Ani. How do you find balance between staying informed on what's going on and taking care of yourself?
So that's where I choose what comes onto my phone and what doesn't. So I like to stay informed by certain news outlets that I believe to be unbiased and that follow global news, not just local news, even though I do have alerts for things that are local to me. And I let excuse me, my voice, my goodness. I let the news give me notifications so that I can just have an idea of what's going on throughout the day. But I do not have notification on my social medias just because, like I mentioned earlier, I just found that I admire the social work that other people are doing. It's just not the kind of content that I want to be consuming right now. And I know that I will get to a point where I will be ready for that. But until I get there and until I feel ready for that, I just choose not to consume that. So I have all notifications for my socials off. So on my phone, that's how I create that balance. And then in my personal life, I just kind of try to keep that with my conversations as well. So while I'll talk to my friends and check in and joke and, have lighthearted conversation, we also always touch on the rough topics and always, get each other's opinion, see like what we can learn from each other in every conversation that we have. And I'm really grateful to have friends like that, but we also have a balance and we know how to keep it light and just have that middle ground, which I think is essential. Too much of anything is bad for you.
That's a really healthy way to do that. And it's also participating in social rest. Like you, especially in the job that you are just transitioning from, you spent a lot of time socializing just in your work. And if after that you go and get on social media and participate in digital socializing, you're never really getting that rest. So, you're giving yourself sensory, social rest, and emotional rest by staying off of social media right now. And I think that that's really commendable, because I know that I am addicted to social media, and the thought of leaving it for 6 months, it makes me a little how could I literally don't know how I could do that. So I'm really proud of you for having that strength and knowing to set those boundaries for yourself. For myself, I would say that I find that balance by trying to limit my time on social media. And I'm the opposite of you. I like to get my snippets from social media versus so I don't have notifications on for social media, and I don't have notifications on for news because it can just be a lot for me. So I choose when I want to consume the news. I go on social media and see the highlights, and if I want more information, then I go on my news app. So I choose when I'm going to participate in that, and it's not just coming at me when it's unexpected, because sometimes you can be in the middle of a really stressful day, and then you'll get a really disheartening news alert. And that was actually how I found out about the shooting at my mom's school, and I think that really triggered me. So I turned off those notifications because I couldn't, every time they came up, I was scared of something like that. So,
but that's why I can't turn that off. That's how I also found out, and I can never have that off now. I need to know. I need to know. I don't need to talk about it with everyone, but I need to know.
It's so funny. We really are. I think it's a great thing that we bring to this podcast is we have similar interests, but we are both very different people. Yes. So I find it very interesting, the way it's the same thing happened to us, but we took it and ran in two different directions.
Opposite direction.
But I hope that listening to this gave you some inspiration of ways to find that balance for yourself. I do think it's important to be informed, but it's also important to take care of yourself, and it's not selfish to put yourself first sometimes. It's necessary because at the end of the day, the person who's going to take the best care of yourself is yourself. So I hope that if you've been struggling with finding that balance, I hope that you do find it, or at least start to implement some like different, boundaries as Ani and I explained for yourself. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we'll check in with you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.